Want to see this on TV later this year?
Okay, PY has chosen case number 26. What's it going to be?
PY, I wish you well. Always remember, Brexit means Brexit. I think I only have 50 cents.
Oh, Nigel, let's pray that's the case.
That's 10,000. It's not a green.
Well, you can help make that happen. We're trying to get PY onto Deal or No Deal. Help make his application stand out by raising the profile of the podcast. Give it a rating on Spotify and think of a friend who might also enjoy it. We've crunched the numbers and we're about 57% of the way there.
I feel like once again we're talking about primary school houses. It's a topic we cannot seem to escape. But like my brother, was in the Bass house as well. We had sort of that generational thing going on. But I don't know if he spoke too much about Bass. Maybe to his shame.
Around the dinner table.
Around the dinner table. Not sure if it sort of came
that
up.
being said, we have spoken about George Bass at your dinner table.
Okay, there you go.
At your 23rd birthday.
Yeah. Was that with the nachos?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. What were we talking about then?
It was a combination of quoting Suits and just us talking about the disappearance of George Bass.
Yeah. Are we going to get onto that later?
Big time.
I'm excited. I need a refresher. But yeah, it was probably, when the sorting hat sort of first went on my head, I think, and it's like you are in Bass, to my shock, knowing that obviously we were going to be in Bass. They have a real big thing about kind of like family generations.
Blood is thicker than water.
Yeah, I think that was first memory for me.
Do you know anything about him?
Sorry, I want to hear PI's. Sorry, before we
go. Oh, yeah, okay.
We get to hear PI's first.
Mm-hmm. There's not like a particular moment where it just switched and I know George Bass. I feel like I was lucky enough to grow up where I've always known George Bass.
I grew up in a George Bass home.
You've got the Bass straight. And of course, coming into primary school, knowing the houses being Bass and Flinders. There's a fish called Bass, isn't there? Sea bass?
Yes. Yep.
Now you were
any relation?
Pro shop.
You were Flinders, weren't you? So you were in the Flinders.
Spoiler.
Really? Like Yellow House, me? No.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you were Philip.
Sorry, man.
I was a greenhouse in primary school, Philip.
My bad.
It's okay.
I'm not going to lie. For some reason, I thought he was yellow as well. I got yellow vibes from you. Yeah.
Wow.
You think you know a guy.
Yeah, that's probably... Yeah, same as Ben.
So do you have a first memory of Matthew Flinders then? If none of us here, the missing piece is we do need someone from the Flinders house to really complete this podcast today. Because I was Cook, PY was Philip, Ben was Bass.
I can't think of any notable Flinders alumni off the top of my head, to be honest.
I think I just remember being surprised that his first name was Matthew. Yeah. So my older brother friend who was in Flinders was like, "Yeah, we're Matthew Flinders represent." I'm like, "Well, Matthew." I don't know why I was really taken aback by that.
There's some like I guess memorials around Cronulla, right? And some
Bass and Flinders Point.
Yeah, Bass and Flinders Point, of course.
Did you? I don't know if you felt the same. I felt there was like a kind of class system when it came to their houses. Of you had your two main character houses, which were Cook and Philip, and then you had not in terms of achievement aside, but main characters of history.
You've got the local guys,
right. And then you've got your side quest guys, which are Bass and Flinders.
There is a bit of a disparity there.
Yeah, but I guess realistically, who's Philip? Like, what did he do? He was just...
Wasn't Arthur
Governor
Phillip? He was
like
the first governor.
He was just like... He was... What do they call that? He was propped up to just...
Speared in the shoulder.
Was he...
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Parachuted in, was he? To the safe seat that was.
No, I'm sure he was very decorated in whatever he did before he took that post.
But I'm also like...
He wasn't an explorer.
Do you reckon...
True, not a botanist.
Yeah. Do you reckon there was a bit of a click between Bass and Flinders? Like, they've got a very much a dynamic duo. Like,
big time.
Like, Hamish and Andy.
Yeah.
Like, it's... Do you reckon other people were like, oh, why can't I be part of the Bass and Flinders? Like...
Yeah.
Or do you reckon they look there and be like, oh, he's so immature.
I'm hesitant to speak too much into their character because I just don't... I don't know them.
But I thought you've always known.
Known the name.
Now,
I'm excited to learn about it.
They have quite an interesting background because they're both born in the same part of England, but they don't grow up as friends. So they're both born in Lincolnshire.
Oh, of course.
which, if you don't know your English geography, we're probably talking mid-east England, I'd say. So not quite as far north as like Newcastle or anything like that, and not as far south as, say, your Norwich and Ipswich. So I'm pretty sure I could be mistaken here, but I think the main areas you can find in Lincolnshire are Grimsby and Scunthorpe.
Okay, so still like east of Manchester.
Oh yeah, yeah,
and a bit further north.
Then Ipswich and Norwich, yeah.
Ipswich and Norwich are like pretty far south, aren't they?
Yeah, reasonably. Not quite
Ipswich
as...
and Norwich are like below Manchester, aren't they?
I assume so. I haven't got the line out. I need to get my protractor out and test the angles here. But yeah, anyway, same part of England. And what was also really interesting was that George Bass became a surgeon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Dr. George Bass.
Yeah. Nice.
Did you guys watch the show on Disney Plus, The Artful Dodger?
No.
It's good. Give it a watch. It's about a doctor who's kind of a surgeon in Australia, just as colonialism is happening.
Ah.
But it's
Is it just George?
Yeah.
Bass?
yeah, but it's kind of
Do they
like
call him like a Greg Bass or something?
yeah, it's kind of like thriller cross romance.
Oh.
I feel like you could just use George Bass and get a much more moving historical fiction story. Well, and the interesting thing was Matthew Flinders grew up with parental pressure to be a surgeon. But he wanted to cross the seas and he wanted to join the Navy.
Spirit of adventure.
Yes. And Robinson Crusoe was his favorite book growing up and he wanted to see the world. Now, what was interesting was in that time to join the Navy, it was basically a class system, or you could even go as far as saying a caste system, in that it was who you know to get into the Navy. And Matthew Flinders didn't have any connections, which was a bit of a sticky situation for him. So to get into the Navy, he basically had to have a very tenuous link. If I'm not mistaken, it was his cousin tutored a daughter of a low-ranking naval officer, and Flinders was like, "Hey mate, any chance you could get us a job?" And, come on, we're
Networking.
and yeah, I guess basically it's what 1700s LinkedIn, and successfully managed to become not a naval officer but a naval assistant. So basically got some work experience on the ships.
Hey guys, super excited to announce that I just commenced a new role as naval assistant at...
You would think the Navy would need surgeons.
Well, Flinders wasn't a surgeon just yet. So his parents wanted him to be a surgeon, but he very much didn't take up his training because he wanted to try and get into the Navy. So
Do you reckon was the Navy different in terms of was it lucrative to work in the Navy back then compared to obviously, surgeons and naval officers now are pretty different in terms of but I don't know, was the Navy the thing, or did he just want to?
Yeah, Navy was the bee's knees because it was firstly prestigious. Secondly, if you go back to kind of medieval England, to be a knight meant some sort of royalty title. So very much still the prestige that was attached to, you're not just a nobody, you're not peasant scum. You're
defense of the king.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously it's nothing like the medieval era in the 1700s, but there's still the hangover from that era.
Yeah.
Obviously you couldn't run private practices and make your Charlie Teo brain surgeon money in that era as well. And then the other factor was we're 150, nearly 200 years on from the New World being found. And so it's a chance to go and see the New World.
Yeah.
And so it's considered extremely prestigious. Maybe something like being an astronaut today.
Yeah.
Might be
So what year are we talking right now?
We're talking the late 1780s, early 1790s.
Okay. So Australia has their first fleet's landed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Flinders gets to go on a ship and go through the South Pacific and go to the Pacific Islands and see the Spice Islands and those sorts of things. And he's like, whoa, this is awesome. I need to get down here. And so basically what happens is he comes back to England. He gets a little bit of battle experience, not actually fighting himself, but documenting the battles. And apparently he's quite a good descriptor or quite a good describer of battles. And so that wins him some prestige in the English Navy. And while documenting a battle between the British and the French, he meets a guy called Waterhouse.
Tom Waterhouse.
Tom Waterhouse's
Gay Waterhouse.
ancestor.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, damn.
So this is the same Waterhouse. I don't know
Is it
which.
Gay or Gale?
It's Gay Waterhouse.
Yeah, that's what I
Waterhouse
thought.
is
I don't
mad.
really know. Yeah, I just remember like Tom Waterhouse had like 6 months in the sun in like 2011 where his betting ads were everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've
even-
really thought about him ever since.
He had it like
Because I know Gay Waterhouse was the horses and the dogs, and greyhounds, wasn't she? Like I know, like
yeah,
the-
she's a horse. I didn't know she was in the dogs. I thought she was.
Oh,
just a horse
I am
trainer.
really talking out of my.
I think
backside
I think
here.
she's just horses. But yeah, Tom Waterhouse had a resurgence. So sometime last year, his ads started popping up again, and everyone's like, "What's
yeah.
going on?" Oh.
Yeah.
Guess who's back.
Let's. Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow
There's
Tom
enough.
Waterhouse returned.
There's enough podcasts talking about gambling and betting agencies.
Yeah. So anyway,
Anyway, I put this foot down. We do not affiliate with that.
well, and talking about convict colony, it's pretty inescapable. So, so he meets Mr. Waterhouse, and basically, once the battle kind of finishes, Flinders has got nowhere to go. He can't do his naval assistant job because there's not a battle. So he meets Waterhouse. He's like, "Oi, Waterhouse, remember me, Flinders? Yeah. You're going down to Australia, I hear. Any chance I can come on board? I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want to do, and I'll do whatever it takes on deck." And so he aboards the HMS Reliance. It's in 1795. This is the same boat that firstly has George Bass coming to Australia as a surgeon, and
So George is on the boat.
George is on the boat. Secondly, it's also got Benelong, who
Ah, yes.
because Benelong
Yeah.
was the first Indigenous person to go to the UK, and this was on Benelong's return to Australia. He's on board Flinders and George Bass on the way home.
Cool.
That's quite an all-star cast.
It is really. Again, we've got now our second pitch for an unbelievable movie about life on deck.
Yeah.
And
The sweet life of Benelong, Bass, and Flinders.
And Waterhouse.
oh yeah,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Didn't even. I forgot about Waterhouse as well.
Yeah.
So, clearly, Flinders and Bass strike up a bit of a friendship on board.
Yeah.
They've got lots of Lincolnshire chat they can get around. They've
true.
got some surgeon chat that they can have.
Did your parents also make you be a surgeon? You bond over the shared experience. Okay.
And so they rock up in Australia in 1795. What happened on board was that George Bass was doing a bit of a side hustle on board. So obviously he's a surgeon, so he's got no work to do on board unless an emergency happens. So he starts weaving together a little raft, so to speak. And as a raft that could be taken, and his plan is as soon as we get off board, I'm going to take this and we're going to go exploring. And he basically goes to Flinders. He's like, "Look, you don't really have a job here. You just got on board because you wormed your way in. Join me, and together we can chart a whole bunch of Australia out. We can go exploring. We can go, identifying botany and that sort of stuff. Come on board." Flinders obviously has no other option. He's like, "Oh, sweet, it's a job. Like this is like meaningful purpose for me to do." And so Flinders and Bass, when they reach Australia, they take out the little raft that's called the Tom Thumb, and
So where have they've landed in Botany Bay, have they?
Port Jackson.
Port Jackson's where they actually end up. So
Yeah,
when Philip
okay.
rocked up, he initially rocked up in Botany Bay, then went to Port Jackson.
Yeah.
So Port Jackson's where they
Dangerous.
properly disembarked. I should have said. I think I said Botany Bay before. Port Jackson was what I meant.
I mean, surely they're going Parramatta River, Hawkesbury River, Georges River, Cook River. These were not called these at the time. These were-
What, the Port Hacking River? Why?
So yeah, so basically he sails out and he goes to Botany Bay and is like,
He's
okay.
bound there for there.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a shame you missed the Botany Bay episode, Keeler.
Yeah.
So basically, they sail around back around La Perouse and into Botany Bay, and they're like, "Oh, cool! This is where James Cook first sort of like had his interactions. Let's go down that way." And they're pointing in the direction of the Georges River. So every time you drive over the San Souci Bridge or the Tom Ugley's Bridge, just know that you're looking at the bit where Bass and Flinders kind of pointed at for their first little side quest, and then sailed down. It is called Georges River.
Yep.
You would assume that George Bass has gone, sweet, first line, I'm on the board.
Shoddy.
It's actually named after King George.
Ah, boo.
As they sail down the Georges River, they identify some more botany and some more plants. Like, you know who was really good at this? Who was really good at identifying botany?
Oh, what's the guy's name? How did I
Banks?
forget him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, Joseph Banks was the kind of Cook's chief botanist, and they're like, "Oh, this has got some cool botany." As they go sort of like past Picnic Point Way and a little bit further down the Georges River, and they're like, "Cool, we're going to call this Banks's Town."
Bankstown.
And eventually, over time, obviously, they kind of got rid of this. Like,
It's a bit tricky, that one.
Yeah.
Banks' down.
I feel like it's just crazy. Like they're just, I mean, no one's there though, right? I mean, maybe some indigenous, but they're just pointing at bush basically and going, "This is Banks' town."
You know what this needs? This needs a highway and a Walmart.
Bankstown Central.
it is, and it's very abstract to think about. Yeah, that you are just pointing to a bunch of bush and being like, "This is
This bush is better than that bush, so we're going to name this bush.
It's also not that close to the river.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit more inland. So obviously they when they set up shop, they build a little bit further away from the river. But yeah, basically that's how the settlement of Banks's Town began.
Indigenous weren't necessarily also out on the river on their own boats.
No, they were, and they have a lot of interactions with Indigenous people, including one instance where they actually sail into Guatemala, and
They jump off the rock? Surely.
I think, you have to. You're not to. Especially if you're going further south and you've got Jamboree waiting you. But while in Guatemala, the Tom Thumb has some damage and they get some help from some Indigenous people to repair it. And Flinders' treatment of Indigenous people, obviously, like in a modern context, wasn't great compared to other people in that first generation of British settlers. Flinders was probably amongst the best in terms of how he treated them. And
What was he doing?
so violence was an absolute last resort and pretty much a no-no. In terms of our documentation, we do have Indigenous people that died at the hands of his men. It's doubtful that Flinders was the one who ordered any of execution. The only time we can really see Flinders ordering violence is mainly shooting above the heads of Indigenous people to scatter them. I could be mistaken. I could be missing something, but in my research for this podcast today, I couldn't find any incidents of Flinders being the one that was like, yeah, go and attack these. Don't get me wrong, there were tense interactions, and like we said in the last one, the Indigenous Australians were far from a monolith. Yeah, obviously different Indigenous groups had different reactions to the settlers, and the settlers were also not a monolith. Some settlers treated the Indigenous people far worse than other settlers and far better than other settlers. And so, yeah, basically, Flinders actually did seek the help of the Indigenous people a number of different times. And it really does seem like, at least compared to a lot of the other first-generation colonists, so to speak, it really does seem like Flinders cared about science purely. And this was a scientific exploration. Well, obviously, of course, being a product of his times and carrying the British superiority that would have been there in the late 1700s. So, Bass and Flinders, they set out. They explore the Hacking River. It is yet to be called the Hacking River. In the First Fleet podcast, we discussed Henry Hacking, who cheated on his girlfriend, or cheated on his mistress, I think. It wasn't his wife, I think it was his mistress, and then shot her, and so then he got sent to Tasmania. And so we got our local river named after him.
It's a shame, really.
Also the guy that is believed to have assassinated Pemaway, which was what why he got the river named after him was because there was a bounty on Pemaway's head.
Yeah.
Blood. Far out.
So we then have them like kind of traverse a whole bunch of different areas in kind of, I guess, from anywhere from Sydney down to the Shoalhaven and then also out west. So they go look at an area called Prospect Hill, which is sort of Blacktown area, and they
Wet and Wild.
Yeah, that'd be what. Yeah. Wow. Can you imagine them looking 250 years ago, being like, "We know what's going here." What was really interesting as well is they actually found lost cattle from the First Fleet.
Oh wow!
This is at sort of Penrith area, just before you hit the Nepean.
Yeah.
So this is like pretty much at the foot of the mountains. They actually try and cross the Blue Mountains.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they took ropes and everything, and they were ready to go. After 14 days, they like, nah, this is pretty intense. They got back on the boats and they started, going south again, and they passed Kiama.
Oh yeah.
And
They would have seen the blowhole.
that was exactly it. This is the first written account, at least in terms of like anglicized understandings of documentation, of the blowhole.
Wow. So he's made a point of it.
He has made a point.
"Mate, this was sick.
Yeah. So they basically have quite a good time. They're just traveling south, documenting things, trying to cross areas, but no harm done. We'll kind of abort. We'll pull back. What is quite interesting is a shipwreck called the Sydney Cove. Did you learn about the Sydney Cove in either primary school or high school history?
No, I don't think
It was
so.
in the shipwreck. No.
The shipwreck,
Like, is
yeah.
the ship called the Sydney Cove?
The ship called the Sydney Cove.
Because we have
Yeah.
the Sydney Cove. Like, is the shipwreck in the Sydney Cove? Or is
No.
it just the boat it's called?
No, that's what the boat was called.
Yeah, okay.
And
I'm still
not
like,
being
how'd they like make this boat on another boat?
Yeah, I was also
And then
thinking
they're
that
just, it's very seaworthy.
the Tom Thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, very impressive. George
And then
Bash, he's
if-
very good with his hands.
Yeah.
He's,
It wasn't. I hope he wasn't.
If
you know,
the
taking
blowhole-
bits of his current boat.
yeah, do you reckon the conflict of interest clause was signed on board the ship?
must have been.
No side hustles allowed. You're eating into
yeah.
company time here.
You can't
do
really
they-
keep it hidden either. You're like, put a little tarp over it, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's nothing. Nothing.
How do they transport that? Yeah. And then, like, if the blowhole's blowing, it must have been pretty rocky.
Yeah, like a lot
The,
of waves
the water,
and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very, very impressive.
You guys been to the little blowhole?
I have.
Better.
Yeah. You reckon?
Yeah.
Underrated.
I think I went with Ben actually when we did our Kiamat and
yeah,
Gerringong.
the little walk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So the Sydney Cove, basically there was a ship that was traveling from India to Australia with a whole bunch of goods that actually overshot Sydney and crashed near some small islands just at the north of Tasmania.
Bit of an overshoot. I guess.
A bit of a whoops.
Got that one quite wrong.
Now, remember, a lot of people do not know that Van Diemen's Land is separate to New Holland. Abel Tasman charted the seas, and so he obviously knew that they were different. The British government knew that it was different, but this was actually a secret kept by the British government because that would actually make it messy in terms of claims of land. So, realistically, as far
Girt
as
by sea.
oh yeah, and they were separate, like they were almost separate plots of land that they had to claim ownership over. So the Dutch never claimed actual ownership over Australia. It was just guys like Dirk Hartog that rocked up and
It's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, I don't really want it, but
I want to go to Indonesia. This is way cooler. And so we had New Holland and Van Diemen's Land, and basically, as they the British government were like, well, we've got New Holland and we don't want to have to go through any mess to try and claim Van Diemen's Land. So officially, Van Diemen's Land is just an extension of New Holland. That's the official line. Realistically, obviously, we know that's not the case. There's quite a sizable chunk of water in between the two. So they overshoot it and they crash at some rocks that are kind of, in the Bass Strait, halfway between the mainland and Tasmania/Van Diemen's Land. So they've got to try and preserve the shipwreck as best as possible, and they kind of like wash up and go to some like small islands that are there. They save the rum, and that's the thing that they make sure they hold on to. Again, the fact that Waterhouse has been in this story so far is really indicative of the times. This is 740 kilometers from Port Jackson. So there's 47 of them. 17 actually decide to leave on the little sail longboat that they kind of row away on. Like, okay, clearly we are very far south of Port Jackson. So what we're going to do is we're going to send 17 of them off. And again, if you're out of that 47, you want to be in that 17 because you're like, well, they're probably never coming back. Let's be real. And so 17 of them leave and they actually set foot in Victoria. Then they, by foot, go from Victoria to Port Jackson.
oh, that's a long way.
It's more than 740 kilometers, right?
Yeah, I feel
by-
like it takes. It's almost over 1,000.
But,
isn't it, to drive?
that's by road where you're going inland.
Okay.
I don't know. If you just
yeah.
hug the coast, I think it's about at least from where these islands were. So I don't know if they went all the way to the south of Victoria, but clearly they rocked up.
Oh, so they're just somewhere like along the Victorian coast, perhaps.
Yeah.
So
on
it's-
the
I
east.
thought
Yeah.
they were in the strait.
Yeah, they were, but it's like to the northeast. So it could be a little
Yeah.
bit like in line in the way that it moves around.
Okay.
Because like obviously Melbourne, you've got the U shape. Anyway, carrying on.
It's a long way.
Long way,
regardless.
740 kilometers to go. And they have differing experiences with each indigenous group as they travel north. Over time, a lot of them die. And there's only, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's only 2 survivors that remain
Wow.
out of that 17 that set foot. They get to Guatemala. Second time in this story. And
Surely they're like, I think we should jump off. I know we've lost some guys along the way, but we should just pause for a moment, have some fun.
And what happens is they run into some British fishers that are off out in the sea. So you know how if you go to Guatemala, there's like the little lagoon, and then there's the obviously ocean on the other side. I say obviously for us, for our non-Sutherland Shire listeners,
Yeah.
that is not very
It's a
obvious.
bit of a landmark, though,
It is.
Sydney.
Yeah, in Packed to the Rafters, one of the main characters dies, and Hugh Sheridan has lost his wife in the show. And the first scene filmed after that event is him meditating on it in Guatemala. Fun fact for you.
There you go.
So yeah,
You're a big Pack to the Rafters fan, aren't you?
well, I watched about 3 seasons when it was on in my household.
Fair enough.
When I was, probably about 10, 11 years ago. I
haven't seen it.
I haven't seen Back to the Rafters either. So that's the kind of seek the return in the sequel.
okay.
Anyway, so they run into fishermen, and the fishermen get them to Port Jackson, and they're like, "Oh, guys, you won't believe what's just happened. You've been shipwrecked hundreds of kilometers south. There's 30 guys still waiting there. They've got a lot of rum, and they're just kind of drinking rum. We need to get to them as soon as possible. But also, when we were in Wollongong, obviously I wouldn't use the term Wollongong at the time, when we were in the Illawarra, or whatever term they used to describe it, we found a place called Coal Cliff.
Yep.
There's a lot of coal that is there. And again, this is early stage industrial revolution. Coal is very valuable in terms of being able
How'd they
to
find it?
mechanize. I don't know.
Isn't the coal underground?
Yeah, I would have thought so. Maybe there's some indicators, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually have no idea how they found
Sure.
it. So basically, and there were indigenous groups that were there as well, that kind of, I think, had used coal in maybe like art or anything like that. So I'm guessing that's kind of an indicator as well. But they are like, okay, we got to go to coal. And so George Bash is like, oh, I'll jump in. I'm coming for this expedition. And
So where are Bass and Flinders?
they've gone back to Sydney. They're kind of documenting what they found. And they're in Port Jackson just being like, there's all
But
this.
where have they
weren't-
been?
They weren't on the.
They were not on the Sydney Cove, sorry.
I know, yeah, but so how do they find out?
Well, Bass and Flinders, they kind of just keep an ear for any exploration
job
chat.
opportunities.
Yeah.
They're on Seek. You know, they're on looking around for LinkedIn. Just
Okay.
And so they're
I'm just-
basically on call for quests.
Yeah. I need a map because I'm just I'm confused where are they back in Sydney?
Port Jackson, yeah. So they've done their first expedition in 1795, 1796
Yeah, and they've went as far as
Clammer. So the Shoalhaven.
Okay, and then they came back.
Yeah. So they got
Okay.
pretty much to the Shoalhaven River.
Yeah.
So then they go check out the coal, but there's also got to
They've
be
been there before.
They have, but not
Maybe
but
they
didn't
have a
pay
close
attention
enough
to the.
look, yeah.
They've got botany to identify.
exactly. They weren't worried about industrializing. They were pursuing botany.
It was all about the flora and the fauna. Yeah. And then so as soon as they hear about the shipwreck, Bass and Flinders are like, we got to go. We got to check it out. So
They want to pick up the goods from the wreck.
well, no, they want to see if there's an opening between New Holland and Van Diemen's Land because that's what's
Okay.
being spread. Is like, guys, there's actually a lot of ocean in between the two lands.
Yeah.
And so basically, they kind of sail far south. They go into, if I'm not mistaken, the Shoalhaven River. So again, every time you cross that Shoalhaven Bridge, if you're ever going on a South Coast holiday, you're driving past territory where Bass and Flinders have set sail. And then they keep going. And as they get pretty far south, and as you go past Bateman's Bay and that sort of thing, they're like, oh wow, there are some massive, massive swells here. And
Gnarly.
Flinders is like, all its charge.
Yeah.
But basically, given that there's huge swells there, it's an indicator that Van Diemen's Land, that is still hundreds of kilometers south of where they are. If that is where the coastline goes south, there shouldn't be swells that big around where they are. And so they kind of go, okay, we're going to keep going further and further south. Eventually, what happens is the Sydney Cove, the rescue operation happens. Don't know how many out of the 30 ended up surviving. But Bass and Flinders, as a result of the Sydney Cove sort of kind of fiasco, they go into the Bass Strait and they realise, oh my goodness, there is a lot of distance between Van Diemen's Land and New Holland. Now, 2 people. That's a lot of time. I'm wondering, that is a lot of time to spend together just chilling on a boat.
Yeah, so it's just them from like some people go down to Cold Cliff or whatever.
Yeah.
And then from there they just sort of from like Bateman's Bay they just kind of continue on.
Yeah, and they've taken the Tom Thumb out earlier.
Oh, wow. So they're still on the little dinghy and they're going all the way down to. Are they on the Tom Thumb?
Not when they do the Bass Strait, but they spent a lot of time on the Tom Thumb, just the 2 of them before.
So they're like sailing? Are they paddling?
Paddling on the Tom Thumb, sailing on the other ones. And there's a couple of others. Flinders ends up getting his own ship, but we'll come to that a little bit later.
Okay.
Can't get enough of the nostalgic Aussie references?
Wait a second, this is in HP and the teacher just rips it off.
Well, I've got good news. You can get access to 30 additional podcasts with new editions regularly.
There's stricter regulations on that than buying a gun in some US states.
For just $1.50, you can hear about Ben's school captain campaign, Cam crying about getting a participation in the ICAS computer test, and PY never getting his pen license.
She's thought that, no, the guy's name is McDonald.
It's written down. We looked at it.
I would have liked to see the palm
That is
card.
like
It takes 2 seconds to sign up.
What do you reckon they got up to?
Just the 2 of them.
tales of childhood,
Yeah, talking about surgery perhaps.
star signs.
You reckon? I'm sure there's like, I think they're like that Family Guy bit. They're just like the hypothetical. It's like if you could be a hobo with a 5% chance of being inheriting the wealth of a rich man, or Hitler in the last 2 years of World War II, which would you be? Actually, that's 15 minutes at least of chat.
Who was Henry VIII's best wife?
Yeah. They're just like naming niche 2000s Premier League players. Duncan Watmore, Costel Pantilimon.
The Sunderland theme was strong there.
Yeah. I was trying to think in the car. I was thinking like, what's the most niche kind of players I have from that era? A friend of mine in high school was a Sunderland fan, so I had sort of more knowledge of that squad than the common man.
Niche gladiators from the Roman era. Niche, what's the jousting? Is it where you charge it two horses?
Yeah.
Just called jousting, yeah. Niche jousters from
What?
1640s.
Yeah.
I mean, do we have any indication as to the chat?
I mean, I'm sure we do. I haven't looked into the diaries or anything. I'm sure there'd be some witty banter.
Then George said this, and I was like, no way.
But could you imagine if you didn't gel with the person?
Yeah.
How difficult? Like if they're just telling stories that they don't catch on to the oh wow that's crazy. Like if there's no picking up on that.
Is it documented that they got along? Did they have?
Oh yeah, big time.
They enjoyed. Yeah.
Again, like Lincolnshire surgeons.
Yeah.
Peas in the pod.
George was so funny today. He said this thing.
And also, can you imagine if Flinders is like, oh my goodness, George, I've got a mission. We've got a quest. We're on. And George is just kind of, got a dentist appointment on one of those days. So anyway, they do sail around the south of Tasmania, and they're under official orders to do it. And they kind of break the story that Van Diemen's Land is not connected to New Holland, which the world knew. Well, like the upper echelons of the world knew before, but now the public knew. And so I guess there's like kind of like a friendly Geordies element about it
He's a whistleblower.
Front page of the paper. Van Diemen's hoax.
Well, here's the interesting thing. How do you decide who gets to call it Bass Strait? Like there's two of them.
Yeah. Well, it's
Paper rock.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Settle on the handball court.
Very graciously, Flinders names nothing after himself, and Flinders is like,
Oh, he took Bass and Flinders Point, or did we name that?
no, we called it that. So Flinders has gone. I think Flinders didn't even care about Bass and Flinders Point enough to.
Yeah.
But so Flinders has gone. Oh no, you can have it.
Yeah. If it looks like it means that much to you. Like,
And I don't know if he's waiting to be like, no, you have it. But Bass is like, oh, thanks. And it becomes Bass Strait. Bass wants to privatize his life after that. In that, doing government work, and because they ended up being under government orders to go, chart out the territory. Because basically, by that point, the kind of settlement government or the colonial government was like, oh, like there's no point keeping up a charade if a charade exists. Let's just find out for our own sake. Is that like, if we need to go further south, do we need to cross sea to get to Van Diemen's Land or not? And so anyway, because they find Van Diemen's Land becomes the second official colony of Australia. So it's not Victoria or anything like that. Victoria comes much later in the 1850s, really. It's Van Diemen's because they just go, okay, there's no concept of New South Wales or anything like that. It's like New Holland, okay, that's Phillip's colonial government. Oh, we found this new land, Van Diemen's Land. That's going to be our second one. And it also becomes a penal colony within a penal colony. So a penal colony for the convicts.
So if the convicts then act up in Port Jackson, they then get sent down to Tasmania. Damn.
Henry Hacking.
There was a bad, like, pretty bad genocide there.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
Much
Tasmania.
Very
so
bad.
much worse than Sydney.
Really?
Yes. And
They just killed them all, didn't they?
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, like and when we had kind of, again, this is probably a topic for another day, but when we had the colonial government set up in Tasmania, it was two-way violence as well. So Indigenous people of Tasmania made it really clear that they weren't welcome there. And then the colonial government had a very strong counter-reaction to that and massacred just about all the Indigenous people in Tasmania.
Wow.
There are some older people who I know who might say something that the Indigenous population should be thankful for colonization. But even they are like, well, no, Van Diemen's Land was bad.
Yeah. So yeah, all in agreement. It's like, have you seen like the handshake of like atheists and evangelical Christians, like both agreeing that prosperity gospel preaching sucks? It's kind of like one of those things. So basically Bass sold out and was like, nah, this isn't paying enough. So he wanted to basically become a sea merchant. He's like, enough of this identifying what botany is for the government. Is like, again, government work. I'm not getting the perks of the, like the 9 to 3 lifestyle or whatever. So he then goes back to England. He raises £10,000, which was a lot of money back then. And he buys his own ship called the Venus. And his aim is to become a sea merchant and travel the world picking up goods and then selling it on for a huge profit to other places of the world. So mainly by taking advantage of his connections in India and of his connections in Australia and running ships between India and Australia, being a merchant and taking a hefty fee for exchanging the goods. Bit of an issue there. So he took a voyage from India to Australia and it was a good mission, like he made a lot of money, but he couldn't sell everything off in Australia. And some of the Australians were like, might really want that. And so they didn't actually purchase all the goods. Word had it that there were some other customers that were willing to buy. This really sounds like a drug deal, sort of like. The Spanish in Chile.
Oh.
The rumor had it that they were quite willing to purchase the goods from George Bass. And so George Bass set sail for Chile. This is February 1803 in command of Venus. Originally, he wanted to try and sell it in New Zealand, but that fell through. So, we never see George Bass again after this.
Oh, no.
Again, why didn't they tell us this in primary school?
Oh, my gosh, my hero.
This is woke censorship. Why did they stop us here learning about this? So, there's one story from a guy called William Campbell. He was the leader of a ship called the Harrington, and he has made the claim that George Bass he did make it to Chile, that he was captured by the Spanish and that he was sent to work in the silver mines until he died.
Interesting.
So, couple of issues with this story. The first is that the recount of this, so Campbell's alleged to have said this in 1805, but then this is kind of then secondhand information because the first time this story is dated is in 1811 from a guy called William Fitzmaurice. So in 1811, William Fitzmaurice is writing a story about a conversation he had with Campbell in 1805 that Bass had made it to Chile and had been taken into the silver mines, and Bass left in 1803. So again, it's really becoming like it's this pretty much the same amount of time from now to when the Malaysian Airlines flight went missing. And it's like a guy now saying, oh yeah, I spoke to a guy, he said he saw it back in 2017. So it's a little bit of a stretch to the story. There's a couple of other interesting things. Campbell is not a made-up person in history. Very real person in history. We've got plenty of records of him, and we have records of him stealing a Spanish ship in 1803. Now, this would be roughly the same time that Bass rocked up in Chile. So you read that and you're like, okay, maybe there is some credibility. He's clearly in Chile at the same time Bass would have been there. But again, we don't have this from Campbell himself. We have this from Fitzmaurice, who's talking about his conversation with Campbell. And in Campbell's diaries from that time, there's no mention of George Bass at all.
That would be something that you'd dear diary about.
Yeah.
If you watched a man get kidnapped and taken to the silver mines.
And the Spanish did do this to the British. So, like, that's not, like, the story is plausible for a number of reasons, but it's not, there's a couple of issues with the story. Then another issue with it is that chronologically, this story is, from when its origins were, is only dated to about when Bass left, about maybe 3 months after, which again would be a very quick time to get across to Chile and to be able to be in the Spanish mines and all that sort of thing. Another factor is that in 1808, all British prisoners were freed from the Spanish silver mines, and there's no record of Bass at that point. So Bass would have had to have died in the Spanish silver mines in that 5-year period. And the thing about the Venus, like that's the ship that Bass was in charge on, there was a crew of about 25. No record of any of them surviving. So then that leads to probably, a plausible explanation for it being that he's, sunk and they were shipwrecked abroad and kind of died at sea. There are some other interesting accounts. So a guy called, I'm looking at his name, I'm assuming he's either Norwegian or Danish. Jorgen Jorgensen is his name.
It's a safe assumption.
He wrote an autobiography about George Bass that also made reference to him being in silver mines. This is 1835, and he had a reputation for twisting the truth. There was a search in the Spanish archives in 1903 and in the Peruvian archives in 2003, and there's no mention of George Bass in any of the South American or Spanish archives. So, what happened to George Bass?
Chinese submarine, perhaps. Guys, that means that George Bass's ship is out there. So.
Yeah, seriously.
Sub to us on Patreon so we can find a deep sea expedition to George
We can do a two-parter. We can go to the Bass Strait, find Harold Holt, then in...
Yeah.
Again, this is the levels to Harold Holt dying in Bass Strait.
Wow.
Allegedly.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, they don't teach you that in primary school history.
And what of Flinders?
Well, we'll come on to him in just a moment.
Okay, sorry.
What about Flinders? Please tell me he's okay. Flinders wasn't on board. So Flinders stayed on doing government work as a scientist.
Yeah.
So him and Bass had actually separated by that point. Amicably by all accounts.
Yeah. Just different career ambitions.
Go well, George.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of like when Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant split. It was never the same after. Like, as great as Afterlife is, it's not The Office.
Yeah.
Do you think he's just like, he's there just laughing in the pub, Flinders, just sort of having a good time, and then he looks longingly in the distance, wondering where George is, knowing that these things aren't quite as they used to be.
Dreaming that one day he will walk in.
Yeah, every day he looks at the door, just hoping that maybe.
Like a Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Is that what you just...
Yeah. Sorry, you can't actually hear that. I raised my glass like Alfred did.
Yeah.
Do you think that was real
What?
in the Dark Knight Rises? Do you think that was, or was that just like a dream of Alfred?
I've always just assumed it was real, but I guess I'm...
But why wouldn't he say hello then?
If
He wasn't actually there.
Like, Bruce, how you going?
Bruce,
long
yeah,
time.
like,
I suppose.
Alfred raised him.
Inception had just come out at that point as well. Inception was pretty fresh. Same director.
Yeah.
So Christopher Nolan is known for Dreams Within Dreams.
Yeah.
Would Alfred know what happened
there.
to George Bass?
He's there.
Yeah, that's a good question.
But the question is like, why doesn't he say hello? Maybe.
And there's no way he could have survived the blast.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well, right? Yeah. Anyway,
Well, if you
let us know what you think.
Is
If you
George
have a-
Bass Batman? Question mark.
if you have a child in year 3, or yourself are in year 3, you've stumbled onto this podcast. Ask your year 3 history teacher what happened to George Bass. See what they think. I think they're going to be the final arbiters of truth on this one. But yeah, I was quite disappointed we didn't get to learn about it. Be the kid in class. It's like, and what happened to George Bass?
Yeah.
Mr. So-and-so.
Yeah.
You just see the teacher's eyes just kind of go white, just knowing that like they were instructed never to teach this. You did. There's a part of the curriculum, at university, teaching education that just do not mention George Bass.
It's in the contract, like. But Matthew Flinders, he goes on some more expeditions. Again, it's never the same.
Yeah.
So he gets to leadership called the Investigator. So they actually both get their own ships, and you're like, oh, it's not the Tom Thumb though. Like, it's like when that great Monaco team got split up and like separated to, like Bernardo Silva's winning trophies, but it's not the same.
Mbappe's,
Like, and Mbappe's won the World Cup, but when they were all there together,
Jean Moutinho.
Thomas Lamar.
yeah, go all day.
I think Rafael Guerrero maybe even played.
Subasic in goals.
Yeah.
So anyway, he gets
Danish centre back.
Ja.
Oh, Simon Kier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that made more sense.
Ja.
Jorgen.
Berbatov. Was Berbatov there?
Maybe just past his time.
Falcao.
Oh, Radamel. Yes.
Anyway, he led the investigator, and again, fitting name. Just like none of this like naming after like abstract things like the Reliance. It's like, no, I'm investigating. I'm going to be really descriptive here. So he leads the investigator, and what is really interesting is that it was a ship that was he got duped on like kind of buying a car that secretly has 200,000 kilometers on the odometer that isn't told. The wood was rotting really badly. Uh-oh. So he's traveling north, and he's on orders to go and lead an expedition around the north of Australia and basically do a anti-clockwise loop. So start in Port Jackson and go all the way around in that anti-clockwise fashion. He gets to Queensland and, goes past the Gold Coast, goes past sort of, Mackay.
The Gold Coast, because of its golden beaches.
As you looked up after the...
No, I didn't look it up, but safe to assume.
Yeah, because they called Ghana the Gold Coast, as we explored in our last podcast.
Oh, I see.
So they rock up in North Queensland, and in the ocean in North Queensland, what are you going to find?
Crocodiles.
And...
blue bottles. Not blue bottles.
Stingrays.
And...
No, the box jellyfish.
And...
Danger.
Great Barrier
Great Barrier Reef. Because remember, coral is actually an animal.
So true.
Remember that year 5 point that was really profound at the time. And interestingly...
You don't think they ever thought, this industrial revolution that we're having may affect this later?
Well, yeah, Flinders is all about the botany. He would have been in horror over what would happen. But the reason why they called it the Barrier Reef was because it actually blocked the investigator from going any further north.
I could see that.
And because the wood was rotting so badly, they tried to kind of skirt around it and navigate north, but they cut the wood on the coral, and the ship had to run aground. And what was really interesting was that no one can swim at this point.
Oh no!
So Flinders,
surely that's like
it's got to be a prerequisite.
That'll be the first one.
Yeah.
The ship's gonna probably go down.
You've got your first aid certificate, nice. Only a blue armband for Jamboree.
Was that a thing? Did you get an armband if you...
Do you remember at the bus, you had got yellow or blue? And
because you had to say how well you could swim, right?
Yeah. And then when I got to
think
year
about
6,
the rock.
they didn't just make you say how well you could swim. We did a whole day at Cronulla and got tested, treading water and that sort of thing. Anyway, so they can't swim. Flinders can.
Oh.
So again, wanting to get in the Navy was like, probably worth learning how to do this and kind of tread water and flail pretty well. So he directs them to a little kind of bank of coral where the water's shallow enough that regardless of the tide, they'll be safe. They'll be fine there.
Walking on the coral.
Walking on the coral, not quite that. To an actual sandbank next to the coral.
Okay.
Obviously, with the wrinkly skin, the coral would cut quite easily.
He's got his boat shoes on.
What he successfully does, he not only guides them there, he keeps his papers safe. So he's swimming with his papers up here. Quite impressive feat. They have some issues. Before that point, they did have some issues with Indigenous groups saying you're not welcome. What happened was they pulled up in Queensland. Where exactly this took place, I can't quite remember. But a 14-year-old took an axe. So they kidnapped the 14-year-old. So again, when I say Flinders was the best of a bad bunch, like extreme measures. So they shoot above the heads of the Indigenous people. They kidnap the 14-year-old, and they tie him to a tree. And basically...
Oh, in like high school or something?
Yeah. And it's like, you've got a day to return the axe. And the 14-year-old's like, I don't know where it is.
You've left me at this tree.
Oh, damn, I didn't think of that. And eventually Flinders lets him go without actually demanding the axe. They don't get the axe. And he's like, oh, whatever, just go. And then they sail on and then they have kind of the shipwreck. So Flinders takes the little kind of like longboat and is like, I can get this longboat back to Port Jackson and I can send for help. Everyone on board's like, oh, no chance. But basically... Flinders successfully navigates back to Port Jackson. The rescue ship comes. They're thinking they're going to die out in the Barrier Reef, and the rescue ships come and save them.
No man lost.
Yes. So basically,
But they can't swim.
well, yeah. Thankfully, it happened in so shallow waters that it was okay. I'm just like, what about sharks?
Yeah.
Like-
it would have been a good time to maybe learn while they were waiting for him.
Yeah.
True.
The box jellyfish, the
Box jellyfish,
true,
yeah.
stonefish, like it's quite a dangerous. So anyway, Flinders successfully completes his expedition, and in 1803, Flinders wants to go home and gets a bit homesick, wants to go back to the UK. He also has a wife back in the UK.
Oh, he's out there doing his side quests, just neglecting his responsibilities.
Yeah. So basically, what that meant was that he had to go back to the UK, and they were going to go back past Africa and past the west coast of Africa. Because of bad conditions, they need to actually pull into Mauritius, which, if you don't know where Mauritius is, it's east of Madagascar. So a little...
Yep.
And Mauritius is controlled by the French. Now, in most other periods of history, this is just a routine. We'll pull up, get ourselves sorted, kind of make sure our boat gets fixed, and then we'll be back on our way. But... it's the Napoleonic Wars. Britain and France are at war with each other. And so the French governor, a guy called Deccan, he actually arrests Flinders. And basically he's like, look, really sorry, mate. You haven't done anything wrong. Our countries are at war. I think you're a pretty good guy. You're a great scientist. Why don't you just come to dinner tonight? Let's have a dinner.
Parlay.
Flinders goes, no. And the French advisors go, trust me, just have dinner. All you got to do is have dinner with Deccan. Everything will be okay. And Flinders is like, no, I'm not.
I will stay here.
Deccan goes, okay, I will imprison you for 7 years then. Okay,
Stubborn.
this seems like a funny year to live in. Like, just in sense of like, what's coming next? I don't know. This is just all wild. Like everything, like there's no like policies and procedures in place. It's just out of whim. What do I feel like doing today?
Yeah.
Do you think like at any moment in those next 7 years, was he like, maybe should have gone to dinner? Or was he like, I made the right choice?
I'm a man of conviction.
I will die on this hill.
Yeah.
Oh, you're having a Parma. Oh.
Oh, no way. I thought you were having snails, bro, and I hate those.
So basically, Flinders calls it the most peaceful 7 years of his life.
Okay.
But he still has a
Yeah, it
wife.
sounds like he's gaslighting himself.
He
Really,
has
at
a
that point.
wife at home. So,
Yeah.
like, again, imagine trying to explain that to the wife. Oh, so you're coming home for dinner tonight? About that.
Yeah. Are there comms with her, maybe?
Yeah, he can write letters.
Okay.
It's pretty low maintenance.
Yeah.
And what's even more hilarious is that Napoleon actually weighs in. Napoleon's like, just let him go. It's Mauritius.
That's crazy to think that Napoleon
Yes!
is connected to Flinders.
I felt starstruck hearing about that.
Look at our boy. Look how high he's gone.
Like Napoleon, like again, probably like top 10 figures of history in terms of like, no, I go top 5. Like if you ask anyone on the street, name 5 people from history, I reckon Napoleon is getting in most people's top 5. It'd be like Jesus, Julius Caesar, Martin Luther King, Hitler, Napoleon.
Okay.
Something,
All right. Something to think about.
maybe throw Cleopatra in there or something like that. Alexander the Great.
Tutankhamun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah. At least top 10. Like when you add for guys like Genghis Khan, he's a top 10 person.
Blind rank
He-
these historical
Yeah,
figures.
tier list.
He knew Matthew Flinders. Well, not personally, but he knew of Matthew Flinders.
And he felt the need to wait. Like, he would have so much coming over his desk every day. And
Yes.
he felt the need to go, I need to speak into this
Yes.
Matthew Flinders debacle.
And he was like, let's leave the science out of it. Like, and that was kind of the code at the time was like, science is not a casualty of war. And so, because the French and the British were kind of the leading Western scientists in the world, there was like a truce between them that science, like, leave science alone. So
can
Napoleon
explore.
weighs in, and Napoleon is like, no, let him go. And Khan is like, Napoleon, best general in the world, I hear you.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to die on this sword.
But
He rebuffed me for dinner.
Yeah.
It's not going home. Now, Khan justified it under the kind of ruse of, well, he knows the kind of, he knows the lay of the land of Mauritius now. We can't let him go. Napoleon's like, we are not going to world war over Mauritius.
Yeah.
No one can point to Mauritius on a map. And so eventually the Khan lets him go. And it's a pretty chill imprisonment. So it's not like in the galleys in the dungeons. It's like on the beaches of Mauritius, just under like a basic house arrest of the 1800s.
Yeah.
So anyway, Flinders gets to go home finally after these 7 years. Again, think of his poor wife, who is just
Faithful.
like, you what?
Yeah.
And has remained faithful to him the whole time. So he's allowed to come back in 1810.
So how long has he been gone from England?
15 years.
Okay.
So
And he went because he wanted to get away from England.
Yes.
He would just had to. Like, he was
Needed
the
a
one.
sea change.
yeah, and
He went to Waterhouse and like, you got to get me.
yeah.
On. You gotta get me.
So a wild 15 years of
His wife's like, "Can I come?" Like, no.
Yeah. Well, the reason why the wife couldn't come was because she was the daughter of a naval officer, and the naval officer didn't want her on board any ships at all. And was like, basically, Flinders wanted to take her, and the dad was like, nah, not safe.
See ya in 15 years.
Yeah.
Basically. So 1810, he comes back. He probably has cancer at this point. Which is just us speculating. Obviously, we don't know that in the terms of the time.
A lot of time in the sun.
Yes. Like some sort of cancer of stomach, liver, kidneys. We don't really know. Just something is off with Matthew Flinders, and he's unwell when he comes home. He works on his journals, and again, his wife Anne is so happy to see. So Anne Chappelle's the name of the wife, and she comes back and she's like, "Oh, so happy to see you." And he's like, "Just I'll be there. Give me 5 minutes." And he just gets stuck into his journals. It's there that he names.
So he in all the 7 years, he didn't feel the need to do a little bit of journaling.
Yeah.
He was like, nah, this starts now.
Well, he's like, I've got my books, got my maps, can like cross-reference other scientists here.
Yeah, sure.
And he kind of finalizes his maps. Well, in prison, he did do a map of Australia, and he kept ditching it because it wasn't good enough. He was an utter perfectionist. When he's back in the UK, he kind of works on his journals, calls Australia. So he's like, we haven't found Terra Australis, Great Land of the South. We're going to call New Holland, we're going to call that Terra Australis. Terra Australis is a bit of a tongue twister. We'll call it Australia. And then 6 years later, they find Antarctica.
But so he coined
he's
that.
coined it.
Yeah, we covered that on the Matthew Flinders calls
yeah.
Australia.
There you go.
There you go. He's got a bit of cred.
Yeah. And again, he does he does write some chapters after Bass. I know he's never the same, but when Bass disappears, he does write some chapters. So he has a daughter in 1812. In 1814, Flinders dies.
Okay, so absent husband and now has a daughter and then dies.
Yes.
Forced absence, I guess.
Now, here's the really interesting thing. The British government gives a pension to Anne Chappelle and to his daughter. The pension is not very much, but they're like, he was a naval officer, he gets a naval pension. We don't really know much about this. All we know is, Flinders died, that's pretty sad. Australia's pretty nonchalant about it. We fast forward about 40 years' time. And what happens is New South Wales finds out about the pension that the Flinders family got. And they basically go, that's not enough. We're going to give you £100 a year. Victoria, in 1854, they've just set up as a colony. Victoria tries to match New South Wales. Like, no. We'll also give £100 pension to the Flinders family. Bear in mind, this is 40 years after his death.
40.
Yeah.
So
not a lot of use.
So
for
his
that
daughter
one.
is
Daughter is 42. So again, daughter's all grown up now, and she has a son. And what the money is to go towards the tuition of the son. Her son is called William Matthew Flinders Petrie. He goes on to become the greatest archaeologist of all time. That is not an exaggeration.
I like the thought of the goat archaeologist. Like, I hear you, I get it. And the longevity, yes, but I think we're talking about the highest peak. It's not going to be, it's not Petrie in my book.
It's like Sam Neill's character in Jurassic Park's based.
He is he's knighted. He's Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie. He is known as the father of archaeology.
Where'd he go to school?
Eton College.
Yeah, somewhere.
Oxford or Cambridge?
And what's really interesting is he tutors a bunch of people himself. So one of them being Howard Carter, who discovers Tutankhamun's tomb.
Damn.
So put it this way, New South Wales is responsible for basically Egyptology.
So what did
And yet it's all in the British
Yeah.
Museum. You know, where's our where's our cut?
So basically, in terms of like, again, archaeology is not really my area, more modern than ancient, so archaeology is really not my area here. But in terms of kind of like dating techniques, whereabouts in Egypt to go looking for, all of that sort of stuff, that's...
Egypt was his area?
Egypt was his area of
Not
expertise, but the technique is universally
the
applicable.
dinosaur bones.
Well, that's paleontology.
No, dumb.
So...
That's okay. I don't think
So...
don't be too hard on yourself.
So, yeah, basically archaeology is for like humans specifically.
For sure.
So human history. So anyway, so Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie goes on to become the most famous and most prolific archaeologist of all time. And he doesn't get that. Like
he's pretty much grown up when he gets the pension.
He's in his teens.
Okay.
So that tuition means that he can get an education, and then he gets an education and then thrives because of the pension that New South Wales and Victoria gave him. And Victoria only did it because New South Wales did it first. So New South Wales is responsible for finding Tutankhamun.
Yeah.
And literally, the greatest archaeologist of all time has Matthew Flinders in his name. It's crazy. It's crazy. Napoleon knew who this guy was. And here we are thinking, oh, that's the side quest house.
Yeah. Yeah, damn.
It's like, like there's like Barack, George Bass, Obama. Like there's just they're impacting
All
everyone.
that to become the Yellow House.
Yeah, and here's the thing: Flinders named nothing after himself. So he refused to name something after himself. Yet here we are. Imagine him.
Didn't he
just let
refused, like,
his
was
work
that-
do the talking.
Have we actually got? Does he write about that? Like, I refuse to.
Well, because he names everything, so we got records of everything that
okay.
he names. Nothing that he names is Matthew
For
Flinders.
sure.
And so he gives Bass the credit, and yet he ends up with a lot of things named after him, from including the greatest archaeologist of all time. Pretty incredible life. And what was also interesting was that his tomb was in, his graveyard was in central London, and in if I'm not mistaken, either 2018, no, I think it's 2019. I think it was like the day before Australia Day in 2019. They actually have to remove the graveyard and remove the cemetery because there's a train line that's going through it. We might have even ridden on that train line when we were over in London, unbeknownst to us completely. And
What cemetery is he in?
Piccadilly, I think.
Well,
Yes.
like in a church.
No, I think like a just general cemetery. They moved him to a church after that.
Okay.
And in Lincolnshire. But when this train line was being built, we're talking, like 60,000 dead bodies that are there? So needle in a haystack in finding Matthew Flinders. And these construction workers just have a look at it, and I don't know, these construction workers that just think there's something about kind of the writing that this coffin seems a more significant person than anyone else's. We just want to get this checked before we go drilling any further. And they get it checked, and it's Matthew Flinders. And this was found the day before Australia Day in 2019.
Oh, they weren't sure that he was actually buried.
And he was
there.
buried there, but there's 60,000 coffins.
Oh, wow.
Being able to, they need to get this train line built. So they're kind of
Okay, so it's, before the train line, it was actually already built over.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that is the story of Matthew Flinders.
That makes more sense.
and George Bass.
What a tale.
I think we need to do more from this era. I feel like
There's a lot going on.
there's a bit like when we do like a modern conflict and then we're like, and then the Civil War broke out because they said this happened at this election. I don't know. There's something about he rejected a dinner invitation and got jailed for 7
Yeah.
years. That's-
And yet another like cliffhanger in terms of what happened to George Bass. Like something we'll never know.
for now. Until our patrons can fund our joint expedition. Where we get imprisoned for 7 years because we find a new island in the middle of Polynesia and we rebuff their dinner invitation. That was wild.
Yeah, I had fun.
The modern day archaeologists are the builders.
Yeah.